Good morning, everyone. I am Kristen Elliott from the Atlanta Community Food Bank, and you are here tuning in for Quarantine Kitchen episode number 25. It is mighty hot outside. It seems to be a little bit early this year for it to be so hot. And I'm going to bring you some nice recipes that are going to be using chickpeas, which I'm super excited about. And one of them is going to be like the most refreshing, cool recipe for you to have on the hottest day, which so far I think is going to be today. So let's get started. I've got Joy moderating in the chat box. So if you've got questions, please drop them there and she will answer them and we will go forward. She's not here, so we are doing a virtual moderation today. We're going to see how that goes. Okay, so first things first is we're talking about chickpeas, which are also known as garbanzo beans. The name is based on where they are eaten culturally. So across the world, chickpeas or garbanzo beans are eaten in India, South Asian cultures, in the Mediterranean or the Middle East, across Israel, Palestine, all of our beautiful Middle Eastern countries, and then also in the Caribbean area, which has had a lot of influence from Indian culture. So you can find chickpeas just about any culture, and Italian food actually. So they are very diverse, and they're simple to use and easy to incorporate into balanced meals. So when you think chickpeas, the first thing you might think of is hummus, which is a fantastic way to eat chickpeas, especially if you're not a huge fan of the texture. They are just slightly grainier than your typical beans, but they have a good, great source of protein, and they are lower in fat than some of our other bean options. So first things first, I wanted to point out that this can that I opened was labeled chickpeas, and then this can that I opened was labeled garbanzo beans. So they look the same. They are not really any different at all. So 3 recipes to use these beautiful chickpeas. So first off, before I went live today, I started to prepare a couple of our recipes, so we had a nice short video for today. So the first thing I'm going to start preparing is going to take the longest to cook. So I went ahead and put all of those ingredients together. Awesome, you can see that very well. So these are our Food Bank famous salmon burgers. So you can use chickpeas in this recipe by substituting them for the white beans that are called for in the recipe. So these salmon burgers have 1 can of salmon, 1 can of white beans. Today I use chickpeas. Has a 1/4 cup of oats. Quick cooking oats work best because they are a smaller grain. We've got a 1/4 of an onion, which I grated with a cheese grater. So the onion juices incorporate into the mixture, and also it hides them so you don't get the chunky texture of the onion that can sometimes make your salmon patties or salmon croquettes fall apart. 1 second, my oven is beeping at me for another one of our recipes. Oh my gosh, I just want to jump in and show you that, but I'll give it 2 minutes to cool down. I'm really excited about that. Okay, so salmon burgers. For my seasonings, I use black pepper and I use Mrs. Dash. This is not in any way an ad, but the flavors that Mrs. Dash gives you without the salt is absolutely fantastic. So I usually like to use the lemon pepper version of Mrs. Dash in this recipe because lemon pepper and fish go beautifully together. Today I decided to branch out a little bit and I used half lemon pepper and I used half of the garlic herb Mrs. Dash. So that is the flavor profile that we're gonna have. Lemony, peppery, garlicky, and herby. That sounds perfect to me. So once you have all of your ingredients mixed together, let me take one step back. There's one egg in this mix to help bind it with the oats, and then of course the chickpeas. So with the chickpeas, you're going to mash them into a very soft consistency. I like to use a big Ziploc bag and use the flat bottom of a can or a rolling pin or a bowl to help sort of smash them all down. The chickpeas are slightly harder to mash, but they mash just as well as other types of beans. So after you have all of your mix mixed together, you're going to use a 1/2 cup measuring cup to measure out each of your burger patties. So you'll get 5 burgers from 1 can of salmon and 1 can of chickpeas. And then it's a good idea to let them sit. The longer they have a chance to sit, they will hold their shape while they're cooking. So these have been sitting for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to hope that my words are correct this time around and that they won't fall apart when they cook. So I've got my cast iron pan heated over here. It's on a medium-ish heat. We don't want them to get too brown too fast because we need them to cook through the middle. So it's medium, and as they cook on each side, they are going to brown on each side. So they're going to look like a beautiful crab cake, honestly, once they come out of the pan. So I'm going to go ahead and cook up my burgers. See, it's a pretty solid piece, holding together pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and add them to my pan. Okay. I use 2 tablespoons of canola oil today. You can use other types of oils that have a high smoke point because you don't want them to burn. So something like olive oil wouldn't be a good idea to use here because it may burn. I can already smell that beautiful salmon. Okay, let me grab my oven mitt. Looks like my other camera froze up there. There we go. Okay, so my phone is acting up. So we're gonna do this from our forward camera. Okay, so we've got our salmon burgers here. I'm gonna let them cook for a few minutes on each side and just check the bottoms to make sure that they are browning as we would like them to. So let me shift to my next recipe. Okay, so this is the easiest of all of the recipes, and it's a beautiful, cool salad for your hot summer day. So great opportunity to throw this together today if you would like. This is our Mediterranean chicken and chickpea salad. It uses 1 can of chicken, 1 can of chickpeas. I've got 1 cucumber diced up. There's 1/4 of a red onion. You can leave the onion out if raw onion's not your thing. I can tolerate red onion because it's not the strongest. It's good raw, but for me, it's not always my favorite. So do what you like. Yeah, cucumber, onion, chickpeas, chicken. Drain your chicken really well. Drain and rinse your chickpeas and get the liquid off of the outside of them. It's going to help reduce the amount of salt you're going to get from your canned products, and also reduce the amount of potential digestive stress, aka gas, that you might have later from your beans. Okay, so basic salad here. You can add any other vegetables that you like. You can add some cherry tomatoes, some little tiny broccoli florets, some carrots, some olives. What else? Anything that's like Mediterranean pepperoncini, that would be delicious. Remember, our recipes are all basic frameworks, so you can take them and add to them what you like, but just pay attention to the amount of salt that you use because we want your heart to be happy. So for our dressing for our salad today, I've just got a simple olive oil and lemon juice mixture here. So with your typical vinaigrette, you'll have a 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio. So that means 2 times oil and then 1 time of your acid. So today I'm using my lemon juice. You can use apple cider vinegar, any of the beautiful vinegars that you have. You can use lime juice. Lemon juice goes really well with this. It brings out the really Mediterranean flavors. And then our seasonings are going to be super simple. So you can use just oregano, or you can use Italian seasoning, or you can use a combination of both, or you can use the individual herbs that are in your Italian seasoning. So like thyme, I think there's some marjoram in there, basil, oregano. So I use oregano, half oregano and half Italian seasoning, because I was tasting oregano today. So I'm going to add my seasonings to my dressing so I can incorporate it really well. Let me grab my whisk. I like to mix my dressings in a measuring cup. It makes it easy to pour them out, but also it's tall enough to do this little cool maneuver. So when you mix it quickly, your oil and your acid will emulsify or kind of combine and stick together a little bit better. So that's why I like to do this. And it's just a simple little roll between your hands motion with your whisk. So no fancy equipment required. So if you can see that the color of this changed because the oil particles have mixed in with the acid. So it looks a little bit like a Greek dressing, but we don't have any cheese here. But you can add some cheese if that is what you fancy. All right. There we go. Let me just pour this over the top here. So you can use more acid if you would like, if that is your preference. Just to add that there. Okay. So as you're mixing this up, make sure that you get your little chicken chunks chopped up. And so this recipe, the flavor will be so delicious, even more if you let it set for just a little bit. So your chicken is going to soak up the flavor of your lemon juice and your Italian seasoning or your oregano, and it's just going to be much more flavorful, as everything that we eat, leftovers taste better to me, my preference. I know there are people who don't like leftovers. That's your preference, totally. But to me, things like soup and stuff like that work. So this recipe, it's a salad without green, which is something that will make it last a little bit longer and keep its integrity and not like wilt and get soggy. So that's another really cool aspect about this salad. All right, so simple salad that you can take to a potluck because there's no dairy or mayo in it, and it will sit out and be fine. Keep it in your fridge, put it on top of your green salad, serve it as a side dish, leave out the chicken, add other beans, add other vegetables that you like. You have lots of options here. But the highlight here are the chickpeas. They're super creamy and just a great combination with these other flavors. I'm foreseeing this with like some red tomatoes in it because that's kind of the only color it's missing. All right, next, let's check on our salmon burgers. So I like to use 2 spatulas just to make sure that I'm not throwing stuff around. So I'm going to scoop with one and just catch the top with the other one and flip it over, and that's a beautiful brown. So I'm going to go ahead and flip all of these. There we go. All right, I had a tiny bit of my burger come off the side of one of them, and that's because I bumped it. So I think my strategy today is working with letting them sit for a little bit. So you can't see them all that well, but they are beautiful and brown on one side. So last but not least, I love this concept of a sheet pan meal. So with these chickpeas, you can roast them in the oven and they will get really crispy on the outside and be really yummy and creamy on the inside. So you can cook them by themselves on a sheet pan, or you can cook them with other meal components and have your whole meal cooking at the exact same time. So what you do is it's very important for your chickpeas to be dry. The drier your chickpeas, the crispier they're going to be after they're cooked. So with these chickpeas, I drained them and I rinsed them really well and I let them sit in the strainer for a little bit. I'm going to put them on my sheet pan and I'm going to spread them out. And then you're going to see some little skins floating around that are like little clear jackets that were on the outside of the chickpeas. This will be, I mean, the amount that you see will be different based on the brand that you have or anything like that. Because this one that was labeled garbanzo beans, this one was labeled chickpeas and it had more skins floating around. But the ones that were labeled garbanzos didn't have the same amount of skins. They're different brands, so it'll be different. Just pick out those extra skins because they're going to cook really quickly and then they might burn. And that's going to take away from the awesome crispiness of your chickpeas. Okay, first thing you're going to do is get these chickpeas in the oven plain, just like this, 400 degrees for about 5 minutes. That is going to dry the chickpeas. So I read a lot about people leaving them out on their countertop like this and letting them dry overnight and air dry for 8 to 10 hours. Nobody has time for that. Unless you do, and I'm not judging people. So if you don't have time to let them sit and dry overnight, you can put them in the oven for 5 minutes, take them out, add your oil and your seasonings, and put them back in the oven. You're going to cook them for in 10-minute increments. You're going to start with 10 minutes and check them. Give them a shake and make sure that they're not sitting on the same side the whole time they're cooking. And then you're going to do it for 10 more minutes. And then you're just going to keep doing 10 minutes until they're really nice and crispy. It takes about 30 minutes to get them yummy and crispy. It is important if you want to have leftovers for your chickpeas to be dry first. So if you don't want leftovers, you don't have to take the extra 5 minutes and let them dry in the oven. So just keep that in mind. If they're not super dry, they're not going to be crispy later for leftovers. But something that's cool is that they do end up with this like chewy texture that is just different. It's very different than, it's like a combination between a nut and a bean, and it's chewy. And some people might like that. I like chewy things, so I don't mind it. But if you want them to stay crispy and leftovers, you definitely want them to be dry beforehand. Okay, I think I said that 5 times. I hope that made sense. Cool. So this will go in the oven for 5 minutes, and then you'll add your seasonings and oil and cook for the remaining time. So magically, I already have some prepared on our sheet pan dinner meal. Okay, so here we go. I have prepared a whole meal on one sheet pan, all in the oven, cooked at the same time, and it's delicious. I'm just gonna go ahead and grab one of these. Beautifully crispy. So, I can touch this now. Okay, I have broccoli and red onion because I had leftover red onion from my other dishes. I have some sweet potatoes here, and I have chickpeas. So this is 1 can of chickpeas. I did my 5-minute drain time ahead of time, and then this cooked for about 25 minutes. The cook time for the rest of the vegetables will be very different depending on what you choose. So my broccoli here is cooked a little bit more than my preference, but if you like it to be a little bit softer, this 25 minutes at 400 is not bad. I'm going to give this a taste. Not overcooked. That's actually really good. Okay. Let me check these real quick. Okay. So with your sheet pan meal, you can eat just these components and have a complete balanced meal. You can also add some, you can make a grain bowl out of it. So you can put your favorite grain like brown rice or some elbow pasta or couscous or quinoa or whatever you're looking for in the bottom of your bowl. Give yourself a scoop of each of your vegetables and put a yummy sauce on top of it. And you'll have a beautiful grain bowl that's going to fill you up even more than this would by itself. So for me, I would eat this with a grain because I will not feel full unless I have some grain to fill in the cracks. If you are a person that has diabetes, keep in mind that your chickpeas and your beans and your lentils all also have carbs. So they fall into the grains and carbohydrates food group, and they also are protein. So if you are looking at this, you're going to get carbs from your chickpeas and from your sweet potatoes. So just keep that in mind when you are making your balanced plate. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is our sheet pan dinner. Choose whatever vegetables you like and cook them all at the same time. Your roasted chickpeas, I don't know if you can hear that. That was a good press. Your leftovers should be stored at room temperature in a closed container. If they go in the fridge, the cold just makes them lose their crisp. And they're fine. There's no animal products involved here that will go bad. These are great as a topping for a salad. You can use them in place of croutons, whatever. You can use them as a garnish on your curry or any other soup. It's a beautiful, delicious, crispy treat. Okay. My salmon burgers are done. So let's give them a peek and then pull them off here. This recipe came about because we had a lot of canned salmon in inventory, and then the only concept of canned salmon that we were hearing from other people was using them for salmon patties or salmon croquettes. And so this is a take on that, but it's a little bit healthier because we added the beans and the oats instead of flour or cornmeal that you might typically use. I really like to eat these in a wrap, like on a tortilla with a piece of lettuce, and I'll cut it in half and I'll set them next to each other in a line and wrap it up, put some like mustard sauce on it, and it's delicious. All right, there's my salmon burgers made with our chickpeas. They're hidden in there, so if you're trying to hide it, good option. Beautiful salad for a hot summer day, chickpeas and chicken. Leave out the chicken if you are a vegetarian or vegan. Add some other vegetables, add another type of bean as well. And then we've got our sheet pan meals. These are 3 different ways that you can prepare your chickpeas or garbanzo beans, but the options are seriously limitless here. We have dried chickpeas in inventory. So keep in mind, to prepare the dried chickpeas, they have to be soaked overnight, just like any other dried beans. If you take your dried beans and you throw them in a pot with water and you're like, I can cook them longer and they will get soft, they will never get soft. They will just, because they need to be rehydrated with the water overnight beforehand. So, my phone is deciding to work now. So keep that in mind. Some other cool things that I didn't mention here is you can cook your chickpeas in a slow cooker and not have to soak them. So if you want that, if you want to cut out the cook time and cook them overnight in a slow cooker, you can do that and you don't have to soak and then cook and take an extra step out of that. You can make hummus if you would like to do that, but you do need to have a food processor because mashing them or mixing them in a blender just doesn't give you the smooth texture that you need for hummus. So food processor required to make hummus. And then also you can make falafel from your chickpeas. And actually, ideally, you would use dried chickpeas to make falafel because that is a better outcome in the texture. So with that, you would soak your chickpeas overnight, and then you're going to not cook them before you put them into the falafel mix. So falafel mix will be your ground up soaked chickpeas and then some fresh herbs and other seasonings. So they will cook in the falafel instead of cooking before going into the falafel. It's a better outcome all around. Okay, so I need to maneuver in a way that I can see the chat box and check in with Joy. Let's see here. Let's see how I can do this. Okay, nope. Okay, Joy, you're awesome. Thanks for adding all the tips here. It doesn't look like we have any questions or comments from our audience. Cool. Okay. Well, friends, I have shared with you some beautiful ideas for using chickpeas. I want to hear from you, and I want to know if you tried them. Please go to the link in the caption for more information about chickpeas, the key takeaways and talking points that I used today for this episode, and the recipes, most importantly, the written out recipes. So that's going to be the bit.ly link. It's bit.ly/ACFD nutrition resources, and the capital letters are required, so pay attention to that. Okay, friends, we will be back in a couple of weeks for episode number 26. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you will try some chickpeas. See you later.